Hey, I have some good news regarding acceptance for value or accept for value and the endorsement to the Treasury Department and all that. I'm not too fond of bringing in issue without pointing you to the right direction. So if you've seen the first video regarding the fact that it doesn't work, it's necessary to first let you know that the manner in which you're doing it is the problem itself, and that you first need to accept that the way you've been taught how to do certain things is just wrong. Once that acceptance exists, it would open up a path in your mind that would allow you to learn new things and then apply it and then see the change. But if you don't want to, that's fine. If you do, well, here it is. We'll take it baby step at a time. Information is like food. If you have a plate of food in front of you, you have to take a bite at a time. You just can't put the whole plate in your mouth at once and hope to just consume it all at once. There's no such thing as accept for value. Most people who do acceptance for value do it with the reliance upon the fact that the UCC tells you can do this, UCC tells you can do that, even though they never really mention anything regarding UCCs. They loosely know that these bills are checks because there are stubs at the bottom, right? AKA negotiable instrument. And they know that those bank accounts, the federal routing numbers and the treasury and the social security and birth certificate, have monetary value to them. They don't know much about the CAFR account, comprehensive and annual financial report account. They don't know about being a security holder and how to actually perfect a security interest beyond speculation of saying I'm a secure party, or I'm a creditor, or I'm a secure party creditor because I filed all these paperwork and have relinquished my right of ownership to people, because that's really what you're doing when you do all the secure party stuff or secure party creditor or creditor stuff. And no matter how much you change it, you might want to say, okay, now it's secure party or it's just creditor. Okay, well, you're still doing it wrong. But here's a little helping hand for you. If you're willing to learn, do so. If not, hey, good for you. The closest thing that really gives you the substance and leads you to the right direction of you utilizing those stubs as negotiable instruments is in different parts of UCC. And we'll start with UCC 3-302. Value and consideration. Everything you do in commerce is contract. That's the simplified and summarized way to really bring the point across and to drive it home. And within contracts, there must be consideration, because you're saying I'm writing this on top of here and I'm giving this account and this routing number, which, by the way, those federal routing numbers you're not supposed to be using. They are not yours. That is how many people have been locked up. And if you hearing someone like me telling you that accept for value doesn't work and you feel like someone is trying to discourage you, I'm trying to discourage you from being imprisoned. We'll go over all the statutes that they have within their private law to handcuff you and throw you in prison and in jail for good, like they did the guy that invented acceptance for value and all the people following it, and all the other people who are quasi teachers teaching the same thing, flipping it and adding another flavor to it. But here you are. Let me show you what all your quasi teachers and the guy who invented it that got locked up, which we showed the court case, what they will not show you, that has similar principles, which leads you to the right way to do it. We'll take it a step at a time. Accept for value is a buzzword, but there are principles that aligns with it that allows you to use it properly beyond making yourself liable. Remember, liability compels performance. Performance is an essence of contract. In order for someone to perform, there has to be a consideration. And if liability does not compel performance, then the value that exists gives the other party an incentive to perform. And here it is, UCC 3-303, value and consideration. An instrument is issued or transferred for value. This is what people are trying to do. People know that that stub has some type of value to it. It's an evidence, a receipt of them paying it, and then they're just sending it to you to endorse it, right? We'll go over the different types of endorsement also. But what do you do with it? You just put some stamp on it? You write some social security, birth certificate, routing number, all that? No, that's not what you put your thumbprint. You put a postage stamp. Do you know about the Stamp Act? No. And you're using postage stamps? Do you know how it's applied? And you're using postage stamp and putting your thumbprint on it? Do you not know that they run that through private investigative companies and they have your private biometric data? And yet here you are saying you're a private man because you've done a secure party and you are voluntarily giving somebody your fingerprint. Do you know what can be done with that? And if it is being done, then it doesn't compel performance, because that still does not classify it as a proper consideration. And no, your fingerprint and you merely writing your social security number or some routing number does not give a value. But I'll show you how. But you first have to understand. An instrument is issued or transferred for value if 1. The instrument is issued or transferred for a promise of performance. Remember, liability compels performance. In this case, value compels performance. An instrument is issued or transferred for a promise to perform. So all you people doing a promissory note, here is the initial step to show you the right way to actually do it, beyond making yourself liable, beyond speculations. To the extent the promise has been performed, performance here. The transferee requires a security interest, meaning whoever is transferring whatever that instrument is requires a security interest or other lien in that instrument, other than a lien obtained by judicial proceeding. Ding, ding, ding. They're letting you know judicial proceeding is a public thing, meaning that lien has to be a private contract. There has to be a pre-existing private contract before you start doing all these things, discharging one thing or the other. And no, it's not all that secure party stuff, the one man out, all that PDFs. No, none of that. And it's not the common law lien. It's not. The instrument is issued. Number 3, the instrument is issued or transferred as payment of or as security for an antecedent claim against any person, whether or not the claim is due. Antecedent meaning before, meaning something that had occurred, and that antecedent claim is the security interest or other lien that it's making reference to. 4, the instrument is issued or transferred in exchange for a negotiable instrument, meaning there's an even consideration, right? Or the instrument is issued or transferred in exchange for the incurring of an irrevocable obligation to a third party, meaning not the one sending you that quote unquote bill or stub, and not you, meaning somebody else, which, let's just, for the heck of the conversation, let's just say it's the Treasury Department, right? That everybody is trying to pay to this so-and-so department and then put in the routing numbers, right? By the person taking the instrument. And then B lets you know what the definition of consideration is. Consideration means any consideration sufficient to support a simple contract. The key here is simplicity and contract. And contract has to be performance, consideration, and value. Those are 3 main things. There has to be something of value being transferred. There has to be something that compels performance, which is the consideration. What would I gain from doing this? What are you getting from getting me to do this? And the performance is, okay, I'll do what you want me to do. It's really that simple. The drawer or maker of an instrument has a defense in the instrument if the instrument is issued without consideration, meaning there must be a consideration. If an instrument is issued for a promise of performance, meaning it can be a future thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be an immediate performance. It can be a future, a promise, right? There's no more money. There's no money. How's Joint Resolution 192? Well, they're telling you without really using the verbiage, how Joint Resolution. Whatever it is you think you've been doing is not the way. All you have to do is just read these basic things and it will lead you to the way. So listen, the issuer has a defense to the extent, meaning you have the right of claim. To the extent performance of the promise is due and the promise has not been performed. If an instrument is issued for value, if an instrument is issued for value, as stated in subsection A, meaning it has to have one of these criteria or all of them in order for it to be issued for value. Every time you are writing that sideways angle except for value, return for settlement, paid to the account of so and so, you are issuing that thing. You are endorsing it. You are counter endorsing it. You are doing a qualified or special endorsement, or at least you think you are. If an instrument, that bill, that stub, is issued for value, meaning you've done all this properly, as stated in subsection A, the instrument is also issued for consideration. Value is what gives consideration, which compels performance, which holds the party that's supposed to perform liable. When you properly issue an instrument, whether it's current or a promise, and you properly give value to it based on the consideration, which is the list of all these things, you become something called an holder in due course. There's a video that was done on my Patreon regarding how to properly put your vehicle in trust, how to make sure the tax status reflect on DMV and the police system, and how to basically not pay the yearly fee for it, and how to basically put it in trust. And we speak about consideration and being the holder in due course, because that's what you're doing. And this is somewhat along the same line, but just on a different contract now. So what is a holder in due course? UCC 3-302 lets you know what a holder in due course is. Subject to subsection C and section 3-106D. Holder in due course means the holder of an instrument. If there's a difference between a holder and there's a difference between a holder in due course. And you are a holder in due course if the instrument, when issued or negotiated to the holder, does not bear such apparent evidence of forgery or alteration, or is not otherwise so irregular or incomplete as to call into question its authenticity. Let me tell you something. Whenever you write or put that stamp of acceptance of value and all that verbiage on top of that stub, you kill the authenticity. You make it irregular. You alter it right off the bat by your own doing, based on what you saw on the internet, on some social media post, or what somebody told you about acceptance for value, that it works, some speculation that they've never showed you the proof. The UCC that a lot of people hold on to, that they use as the source of entitlement, calling themselves secure parties or creditors or secure party creditors. That same body of Uniform Commercial Code is letting you know the moment that you alter or make an instrument irregular, it becomes incomplete and its authenticity is questionable. Which goes back to the rule of authentication, which goes back to the rule of evidence, self-authenticating evidence. That stub that you're saying is an instrument that you are endorsing, the moment you put things on its face, you deface it, it becomes an apparent evidence of alteration and it becomes irregular. And it removes your ability to be a holder in due course. Let's go to number 2. So are you seeing the flaw already? We're not even diving deep. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Are you already seeing where the flaw is? Number two, you're older in due course if the holder took the instrument for value and in good faith. So let me ask you, are you doing these things in good faith? Do you know what it means to be in good faith when it comes to you doing some special endorsement by defacing this instrument, by using other people's banking account without first having a security interest or other lien? Your commercial lien and your secured party package that you're sending to people denounces you right of claim. It relinquishes your capacity to state a claim as a creditor, because you are giving everything and you are subrogating yourself. If someone never told you that, that's what you're doing. So now you did all that and you think, okay, I'm a secured party creditor. And you get a lot of people that ask this. I'm a secured party creditor. I've sent everything. I've got people to co-sign my this and that. What do I do now? Well, start discharging your bills. Isn't that the promise that was given to you when you started it? You did your commercial lien, right? Okay, go ahead. Start discharging your bills. Start dismissing all these court cases. Right? Wrong. Because you, the one who have done all these things, you know based on your firsthand experience that none of that works. And the people bold enough to just be gung-ho without caring much for it, they're in jail and prisons right now. And they're not going to come tell you that these things don't work. And if you take it too far, it will land you in prison. I'm here saving you the headache and the trouble and speculation. That you need to learn the right foundation. If you're doing all that paperwork and you're not reading these basic, it's not even that long. It's so short. It's very basic. And they're not even using legalese. They're just telling you directly. And the words that you might not understand, they're giving you links to it for you to read it if you don't get it. In order for you to accept something for value, there has to be a consideration. That consideration has to be done in good faith. And the instrument that's attached to the consideration, or the instrument that is the consideration, must not be irregular. It must not be altered, and it must be authentic. You've authenticated your birth certificate, right? Right? That's not the limitation of authenticity. That's not the limitation of information that require authentication. Did whoever tell you about authenticating your birth certificate? And kudos to Jonah Bay. He was the first one that as far as I'm aware of, that spoke about authenticating birth certificate. So I'm not referring to him on this one. But anyone else who's telling you about authenticating birth certificates, they're not showing you these things. And they're not telling you that if you want to discharge bills and all that stuff, if you want to discharge court cases, you need to authenticate other instruments beyond the birth certificate. Shouldn't the act of you authenticating that negotiable instrument called the birth certificate tell you and show you that there are other things involved in commerce? Shouldn't you take a similitude of that and broaden and expand your mind? We are supposed to be one of the most intelligent group of life form on earth. When I look at a lot of people who do all these things, all these cliche things, trying to get their children back, trying to get some vehicle, trying to do one thing or that, writing a promissory note, all these things, it makes me think otherwise. And the reason it makes me think otherwise is because everything that you need to make these things work are right in front of you. They are right in front of you. But for whatever reason, people don't put it to use. They write you some letter back testing you because you figured out a little bit of something. These are the things that you're supposed to be providing to them. These UCC codes, for instance, you can get copy left on it because all these are copyrighted materials. You can get a copy left to it. Once you get that copy left, authenticate it. And then attach that to the affidavit that you'll be sending as a correspondence when you intend to discharge some things. And that's besides the fact that you needed to be a real party in interest, as demonstrated or explained right here. It's right there. You can't say you haven't been told. But nonetheless, let's move on. The second thing that makes you a holder in due course is the holder took the instrument for value in good faith without notice that the instrument is overdue. Man, they're telling you, without notice that the instrument is overdue or has been dishonored. Then you have to stay in honor, right? You hear them say stay in honor, right? Listen. 2II tells you without the holder took the instrument without the notice that the instrument is overdue or has been dishonored, or that there is an unincurred default with respect to payment of another instrument issued as part of the same series. So every time you get that bill, that just gives you a tabular demonstration of the outgoing and incoming, the accountant, and at the bottom they give you that stub. And it says past due or due date or statement date. That this is automatically telling you that if you have any overdue payments, all that except for value stuff, what you think you're doing is not going to work. Meaning it has to be the most current bill. Meaning before you enter that contract for that automobile, for that boat, for that light bill, for whatever it is, you have to know what your intent is before getting into that contract. And once you get that first couple of bills, once it's been traded in the stock market and it has matured for the first 90 days, that's when you make your move. You stay in honor in good faith by first paying it. You're not going to be in default. It's not going to be a past due amount. And if it's a past due amount, then there's another remedy for that. There's a separate remedy for that. There's a solution for everything in commerce. But we're specifically referring to bills. And I'm letting you know, if you are not past due, you first have to take it for value. The holder took the instrument for value. This is where the concept of accept for value is derived, with the intent of being a holder in due course. Are you seeing it? You have to accept it in good faith. You have to still be a creditor. You can do all the paperwork and send it to everyone all you want. If you are behind some type of payment without good cause, aka good faith. So say you're behind payment and you don't want to use other remedies, right? And you still want to endorse that stub. Don't you know you have to attach an affidavit explaining in good faith as to why the supposition of debt exists, as to why you haven't responded for a couple of months? Because they will tell you past due. They will highlight it or bold it. They will put it in a bolded font, past due amount. So are you qualifying for all this? Because in order for you to discharge something, you have to be able to prove that you are the holder in due course. Without holder in due course means the holder of an instrument. If the holder took the instrument for value, aka the whole except for value speculation, in good faith, and without notice that the instrument is overdue or has been dishonored, or that there is an unincurred default with respect to payment of another instrument issued as part of the same series, or without notice that the instrument contains an unauthorized signature or has been altered, and without notice of any claim to the instrument described in section 3-306, and without notice that any party has a defense or claim in recoupment described in 3-305. You probably want to read these sections, but I'm just giving you an overview for starters. The good old buzzword, discharge. Everyone has milked this word. And it goes on to the next section. Notice of discharge of a party. Other than discharge in an insolvency proceeding, bankruptcy, is not notice of a defense under subsection A. But discharge is effective against a person who became a holder in due course with notice of the discharge. Public filing or recording of a document does not of itself constitute a notice of defense, meaning your right of claim. Claim in recordment or claim in the instrument. Let me repeat this to all of you going to the recorders, doing all these things. The UCC itself, when it comes to being a real party in interest, aka holder in due course, is letting you know regarding discharge, meaning if you want to be released of any liability, public filing or recording of a document does not of itself constitute notice of defense, aka your right of claim. And then goes comma, claim and recoupment, because that's what you're trying to do when you really think about it with acceptance for value, or claim to the instrument, which is also what you're trying to do with acceptance for value or that promissory note. If you have not read this and you're doing acceptance for value, somebody has misled you. But of course, there's an African proverb that says to get lost is to learn the way. It's never too late. And there's always solution. C tells you except to the extent a transferor or predecessor in interest has right as a holder in due course, meaning there's another real party in interest. A person does not acquire right of a holder in due course of an instrument taken, 1, by legal process or by purchase in an execution, bankruptcy or creditor sale or similar proceeding, meaning you can come and do any of these other things on a judicial level or on a private level. If there's a first lien holder, you can't do anything because all those contracts are security agreements. 2, by purchase as part of bulk transaction, not in ordinary course of business of the transferor, or as a successor in interest to an estate or other organization. Those two things speaks for itself. D, if under section 3-30A1, the promise of performance that is the consideration for an instrument has been partially performed, the holder may assert right as a holder in due course of the instrument only to the fraction of the amount payable under the instrument equal to the value of the partial performance divided by the value of the promise to perform it, meaning there must have been a prior contract making a promise to perform it in order for you to even do it, any of this. E, if the person entitled to enforce the instrument has only a security interest in the instrument, meaning the specific instrument itself, this is letting you know in order for you to take anything for value and then become the holder to it. Like to take an instrument for value means you accept it for value, right? Accept for value, that buzzword. In order for you to do that, it has to be that specific instrument itself. So you have to deal with it based on company by company basis. Or you can do it based on future performances, which we'll talk about that later if the time comes. And then no, that's not promise to pay. That's something else. The person obliged to pay the instrument has a defense, claim and recoupment, or claim to the instrument that may be asserted against, meaning you have a defense. Say, for instance, you've done the accept for value and the county, the city, the entity, whatever it is that you're doing the accept for value, say, you know what, screw this. I'll attach a claim on the recorder's website against the property because, well, you haven't been paying me my amounts. I provide you the service of electricity, internet service, garbage service, whatever it is, water. But you're doing all this stuff and you're clueless about it. Screw it. I'm going to put a lien or levy on you one way or the other, or I'll sue you. This is telling you how you can have a proper defense to it. The person entitled to enforce the instrument may assert right as a holder in due course only to an amount payable under the instrument, which at the time of enforcement of the instrument does not exceed the amount of the unpaid obligation secured. F. To be effective, notice must be received at a time and in a manner, very important, meaning the form. Notice, to be effective, notice. Remember, it tells you merely putting something in a public records is not sufficient for you to be a holder in due course. Where is that at? Tells you public filing or recording of a document does not of itself constitute a notice of defense or claim of recoupment or claim to the instrument, which is what most people want to do. Then at the end it tells you, it gives you the solution to be effective. Notice, that same notice everyone is running around doing that they think makes them a secure party, must be received at a time and in a manner, meaning a specific form, a specific format that gives a reasonable opportunity to act on it. Meaning you're not doing a unilateral contract. You are doing it in good faith. You are given real proper notice, and you have to get a correspondence back that's saying that, okay, we're going to act on it. If you're not getting any of that and you're just sending all these notices, it's just child's play. You're tooting your own horn. You're blowing smokes in the air. That's all. This section is subject to any law limiting status as an holder in due course in particular class of transaction. So let me tell you something. Let me assist you a little bit. Instead of you saying you're a secure party or a creditor, because a secure party, the conditions to that, in some case, it can be similar to a holder in due course. In many situations, a secure party is very iffy, very, very iffy, because there can be more than one secure parties to the same instrument, to the same interest, to the same transaction. I don't know about you, but I don't want any other secure parties with whatever it is that I have interest in, unless I'm the one calling the shots. And that position that's superior to a secure party or a quote unquote creditor is a holder in due course. I'll say that and I'll leave that there. A word is enough for the wise. Let's move on to the next one. Special endorsement, blank endorsement, anomalous endorsement. Subsection 3-202 of Uniform Commercial Code. You've all heard endorsement, special endorsement, right? Without recourse. All rights reserved, right? You don't accept for value. It's an endorsement, special endorsement. Well, if you didn't know what it was, even if you think you knew what it was, chances are you probably still don't know what it is. I'm not sorry, and I'm not apologizing to you if this makes you feel somehow. My intent is to let you know that there's a proper way to do things and you're not doing it right. And you should be doing it right, because what you're doing affects the totality of circumstance. If a small pocket of people know how to do it right and the majority of people are messing it up, it's actually good in some ways because it preserves the integrity of the information. But there will come a point when certain people start to move up the ladder, and because of what you're doing at a certain level, it's screwing up the game for other people on a huge level. So these things has to be introduced to you. Step your game up. Don't be stuck. Learn. Everything that you're dealing with is merely introductory. In fact, this is introductory. What you're dealing with is barely introductory, because most people doing accept for value don't even know these things. So here it is, UCC 3-205, special endorsement. If an endorsement is made by the holder of an instrument, whether payable to an identified person, so with accept for value, you always make it payable to someone, right? You use that routing number, that social security number, yeah? Here's the principle behind it, so listen. Whether payable to an identified person or payable to bearer. When you do promissory notes, payable to bearer on demand, right? And the endorsement identifies a person to whom it makes the instrument payable. It is a special endorsement. Meaning you have to specify who it is that it's payable to. So tell me, if you're trying to discharge a bill, who are you going to be endorsing it to? And why? That is the question you need to ask yourself. Besides the fact that you made the instrument, that stub, irregular, and that you're doing a promissory note the wrong way and all that, and whatever it is that you're doing in conjunction with the stamp that you put in on the stub, or if you just put in the stamp on the stub and you're doing your verbiage separately from the promissory note, who is it payable to and why? Ask yourself these basic things first. When specially endorsed, an instrument becomes payable to the identified person and may be negotiated only by endorsement of that person. The principles stated in section 3-110 apply to special endorsement. If an endorsement is made by the holder of an instrument and it is not a special endorsement, it is a blank endorsement. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. When you want to buy cars with GSA, or when you want to release people from jail, what you're doing is a blank endorsement. There's a reason why you do that. It's an incentive for performance. And that same principle applies with taking an instrument for value and having it reflect in an account that you open with an entity that provides service to you. I'll leave that there also. When endorsed in blank, an instrument becomes payable to bearer and may be negotiated, meaning if it's a blank endorsement, it becomes a negotiable instrument. If it's a special endorsement, it becomes a non-negotiable instrument. In commerce, you always want to negotiate. You always want to leave people an open back end. Now, if you're planning on suing somebody because you figure out all the fraud and all of it, or at least you say there's a supposition of fraud, you better know what you're doing. And you better know the principles of UCC. And you better know how you have co-signed to that fraud that you're finding out now that you're trying to sue them in. And how you're going to become in good faith and prove that they've performed the material fraud or not. I'll leave that there. When endorsed in blank, an instrument becomes payable to bearer and may be negotiated by transfer or possession alone unto specially endorsed. A blank check, basically. The holder may convert a blank endorsement that consists only of a signature into a special endorsement by writing above the signature of the endorser, a countersigning, basically, words identifying the person to whom the instrument is made payable. When you do all that except for value stamp that you put on and all that, you're doing a special endorsement. They're not going to discharge any of that liability of bills supposition to you. And they're not going to make that receipt that they're giving you, which is that stub that's showing where we've cashed out on the back end. You got to do yours in the end. What they're doing by giving you that stuff is they're telling you to do a blank endorsement. Since you already know that you paying them twice or three times anyway, you can't pay bills on that. Let's forget that formality of paying and not paying, because that's the terminology that they will bring into court if they sue you, and they will ride that home. Do yourself a favor, look into a banking dictionary and look up the word pay or payment, and all that supposition of you can't pay this or that goes out the window, because whoever told you you can't pay stuff, they didn't give you the definition of what it means to pay or what payment is. So look into banking dictionaries and look into etymology dictionaries and look up what the word payment or pay means, and then compare that to purchase, and go from there, and you come to your own conclusion whether you can pay something or not, regardless of whether bankruptcy exists or not, beyond some speculation somebody told you. Anomalous endorsement means an endorsement made by a person who is not the holder of the instrument. An anomalous endorsement does not affect the manner in which the instrument may be negotiated. This is best done when you functioning with a trust, which is another thing you should be doing if you really want to take an instrument for value and have it reflect on the service that's being provided to you, that somebody's giving you a receipt saying, well, we've cashed out in the back end, you endorse it so that we can reflect it on the public asset. And I'll say that and leave it at that. Let's go to the next one. UCC 3-204. What is the endorsement and what is an endorser? We went over the types of endorsement. Two main types. 3 really, but most people don't even know how to properly set up a trust. They think they do. They think having a 9-8 or having a whatever it is that they've done, they think that's having a trust. So we've went over the 3 types. 1 specifically applies when you're using a trust. 2 applies all across the board, regardless of whether you're using a trust or not, which you probably should be if you really want to discharge anything or have security interest in anything. We'll leave that there. Endorsement. So what is endorsement? Endorsement means a signature other than that of a signer as maker, drawer, or acceptor. Oh, so you're not the one that's making the instrument. You're not the one that's drawing it to give it to someone else, and you're not the one accepting it. But it has your signature in it. What's a drawer? Means a person who signs or is identified in the draft as person ordering payment. Okay, a drawer means a person ordered in the draft to make the payment. The one that's obligated, and the one the obligation is due to. So if you're an endorser, or if you're making an endorsement, you're none of these 3 parties. That should bring up a light bulb in your head. Then it goes on to say that alone or a company, meaning this alone is sufficient to serve as an endorsement, or accompanied by other words is made on an instrument for the purpose of 1, negotiating the instrument, meaning it has to be a negotiable instrument, aka blank endorsement. 2, restricting payment of the instrument, meaning for a specific purpose. Who knows, maybe for reducing public debt. Who knows? Or 3, incurring endorser's liability on the instrument. But regardless of the intent of the signer, these people are telling you, they are giving you the jewel. Listen to this. The third thing that makes it an endorsement is you can incur the endorser's liability on the instrument itself. But regardless of the intent of the signer, a signature and its accompanying words is an endorsement unless the accompanying words, terms of the instrument, place of the signature, or other circumstances unambiguously, meaning obviously, indicate that the signature was made for a purpose other than endorsement. For the purpose of determining whether a signature is made on an instrument, a paper affixed to the instrument is a part of the instrument. Oh my God. They're telling you need an allonge. Remember we read earlier, if you put anything on his face, you deface it, you make it irregular. It removes the enforceability of that instrument. Where is that at? Look, right here, 3-302 tells you the instrument when issued or negotiated to the holder. This is what makes it a holder in due course, which allows you to be able to enforce anything, aka discharge a bill like everyone wants. The instrument when issued or negotiated to the holder does not bear apparent evidence of forgery or alteration. All that stamp you putting on his face, or is not otherwise irregular, all that stamp that you're putting on his face, or incomplete, all that stamp that you're putting on his face, without really endorsing it properly or doing other things properly, such as adding an allonge to call the question of authenticity. And here, look, they tell you what is an endorsement. It can be some type of signature, anonymous one, special one, or a blank one. But look, in any other case, for the purpose of determining whether the signature is made on an instrument, not some stamp saying acceptable value and you putting things in an angle on face of the stub and all. No, none of that. It tells you a paper affixed to the instrument is a part of the instrument. These people are telling you you're supposed to attach something with that stub. We'll leave that there. Endorser means a person who makes an endorsement. That speaks for itself. For the purpose of determining whether the transferee of an instrument is a holder. An endorsement that transfers a security interest in the instrument is effective as an unqualified endorsement of the instrument. If the instrument is payable to a holder under a name that is not the name of the holder, endorsement may be made by the holder in the name stated in the instrument or in the holder's name or both. A signature in both names may be required by a person paying or taking the instrument for value or collection. So hopefully that lets you know that what you think accepted for value is the complete opposite of how it's actually done. And there's a lot of preliminary things that you first have to do. And whatever it is you think you're doing as a secure party or a creditor or a secure party creditor or whatever term people come up with in the future, it's not what it is. Because one, you don't know what an endorsement is, which is in 3-204 of UCC. Two, you don't know the different types of endorsement. And even if you've heard the word special endorsement, you don't know what it constitutes. Because if you did, you wouldn't be doing all that stamp stuff that you put on top of the stub. And you wouldn't be asking people, how do you discharge bills? Or how do you pay a court fine or a traffic ticket? But you're a secure party though. But the special endorsement definition, the anomalous and the blank endorsement is explained to you in 3-205. And then what does it mean to be a holder in due course, besides the whole buzzword of being a secure party? Know which position is more superior and which gives you the right of interest to be able to enforce anything, whether it's on a contract by contract basis or just in a blanket term situation. And know what gives your instrument value, what constitutes consideration. You have the right verbiage. You have the right concept in your mind, because you know that stub is money. That's the receipt. Okay, cool. You hear a certain word, value, except for, all this. Okay, all right. But you haven't read all these and really known what it constitutes. Everything we just went over is a summary of what it truly means to accept something for value. Is there more? Yes, there is. If you want some more, join my Patreon. We'll talk about that in details as time goes on. But if you still want to keep doing what you got going on, cool, good for you. You keep doing that. I bid you the best of luck. But the least you cannot say is somebody has not told you. And even better, somebody has shown you the source of what it truly is and how it truly is, beyond speculation, beyond just making some things up and hoping somebody is going to just perform. No, it doesn't work. But then at the end of the day, you want to say you're not a United States citizen? Okay. All right. Well, Godspeed and best of luck to you.